Hello everyone, Gebatron here. This video is going to be a beginner's guide to armor in the game Hell Let Loose. The first thing I want to get out of the way is while I was in an empty server taking notes for this video, someone came into it and I ended up kind of picking on him a little bit. His name is Transcape233, Transcape 233. I'm really sorry for picking on you. That wasn't fair. I hope it doesn't leave a bad taste in your mouth. If anybody knows Transcape 233, show him this video. He was a level 1 player and I was picking on him in a light tank, just kind of messing around. So please reach out to him if you know him. I will try to reach out to him as well. Once again, I apologize for your terrible experience on the receiving end of my testing. Why am I making a beginner's video to armor? Well, every time I play armor, which isn't a whole lot, it always seems like there's one person in the crew it's their first time in a tank in the game Hell Let Loose. There's always some guy who claims to be pretty decent, even though he's not an expert. Then there's me, who's definitely not an expert, but I've had some experience in there. And then there's always some guy who just it's their first time. So maybe this will help some people be a little less intimidated. At any given time, there's you know 5 squads of 6 infantry, but there's usually only 3, 4, 5 armor players. So there's not as much experience being gained out there in armor as there is infantry. Um, Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is some upcoming changes. Now, this is being recorded in April of 2020, and I think sometime later this month, they're going to be releasing I think it's update 6. But anyway, they're going to be adding some commander orders, which will give the commander more control over what armor is on the field at any given time. I'm not sure if that includes all armor. Um, they're also going to be introducing recon vehicles, so eventually we'll have to go over that. But all of these tanks do require the fuel resource um, to be spawned in. I don't have the exact values. I tried finding an image I saw one time on the internet. I think it was on Reddit, where someone had gone through and broken down all the fuel values in order to have these things spawn in. So I think like as the Germans, in order to get a Tiger, you have to have at least 50 fuel resource. If we hit M to bring up our map, you can see the current resources along the top. I'll put a link to this video in the description below, a video I made on resources. Earlier, I'll put that in the description below, but we're not going to talk about that here. So just be aware that there will be changes being made. Right now, see we spawned in here at Hurtgen Forest. If I hit T, the bottom left, you'll see Gebatron. That's what the tank commander symbol looks like. It's a circle with 2 hashes in it. Just a regular tank crew member is looks like a gear sprocket. Um, anyway, the Germans here, over there we have the Lukes, which is German for lynx, small agile cat. Here we have the Tiger, of course. And here we have the Panther. Um, Now there isn't parity. Like the Germans and the Americans aren't there's not symmetry there. The Germans spawn in, at least in this map with these 3 tanks to start out with, but the Americans in this map start out with 5 tanks, 2 heavy tanks, 2 medium tanks, and a light tank. And right here we just have, as the Germans, we just have a light tank, a heavy tank, and a medium tank. Now, the devs have done this in order to kind of represent the imbalance, the historical imbalance between these 2 factions. Uh, so, if you're in that Tiger and you're like, geez, where are all these Shermans coming from, when you're fighting, it's because the Americans start off with more. That could change once that the update comes, and then it might be more about who's winning the resource war. But anyway, this isn't going to be really a tips or tricks video. That we're not going to get into anything advanced. But I will give you one tip right away. If you're coming from playing infantry and you're going to get into armor and you're going to spend the whole match in armor, one thing I recommend you do is hit escape, go to your options, go down to audio and mess with your audio, your sound effects volume versus your microphone or voice volume. Right now my sound effects volume is set to 3%. That's just for this video because tanks are loud. I turned my microphone volume up to 85 just so it comes through better in this video. Like, this isn't representative of how I would play, but when I play armor, I do turn my SFX volume down. Not this low, of course, but lower. That's the first thing I would do, because if you're in a tank, it's really hard to hear people talking to you. So let's go up to our Panther here, and you'll see actually you see that L? That's the Panzer Lehr division. That's their insignia. Um, I think Lehr means either teach or learn in German. You know what? I'll actually put a link to maybe a Wikipedia article or something about the Panzer Lehr division um, in the description below, just so we can learn a little bit more about that. Uh, Another little trivia: you'll notice that the German tanker uniform is, or the Panzerwaffe uniform is black. That was apparently to help the German officers and crew members and stuff hide oil and grease stains. Another thing, while we're talking about some asymmetrical stuff, I guess is how you'd say that, is like the American light tank is going to be different than the German light tank. They're not the same. They have different guns. Um, like here, the Lux does not have a machine gun for the hull. It does have a coaxial machine gun, and this is, I think, a 20 millimeter gun. The Stuart, the American light tank, has a larger gun and a hull MG. So it's not like if you're playing German light tank and then you go and play the American light tank, you will have a different experience and different capabilities. Uh, okay, now let's talk a little bit about solo tanking. Um, the community refers to solo tanking as when you're in a tank by yourself. And it's really frowned upon, and I personally don't recommend it. If you want to hop into an empty server and get in one of these tanks and get familiar with how it drives, how it operates, stuff like that, that's one thing. But getting into a full server and solo tanking is really frowned upon. The reason it's frowned upon is because tanks are kind of an expensive resource, and used properly with a full crew, they're really effective. But with just a single guy driving around, it's hard for him to see targets. It's easy for him to, get ambushed. It's just not good for the team. It's not good for the tank. So avoid solo tanking. We're gonna hop into the Panther. I'm gonna pick the Panther because it's a medium tank and it's fairly agile. Insofar as it's fast, but it's also a little unwieldy. It takes some skill to drive the Panther. The Tiger tank, um, it turns a little better. The Lux, of course, is very nimble, but the Panther takes a little bit more skill to drive, in my opinion. And all these tanks do handle differently. The Tiger will handle differently than the Panther, which will handle differently than the Lux, which will handle differently than the Jumbo, or a Sherman, or the Stuart. Okay, enough crap. Let's get into actually how do you work the armor. All right, so you go up to the piece of armor and you hold F to enter it. And you will automatically enter the driver's seat. At the bottom right-hand side, there's a whole bunch of stuff there. The top, you'll see a box with a little white dot in it. That represents the hull MG. You can move that with your mouse left to right, up to down, and if you hold the left mouse button, if you click it, that will fire your hull MG. You can move that around, and that automatically reloads once you run out of ammo. It will automatically reload that for you. But we're not going to start here as the driver. We're going to start at the top. You see it says F at the bottom right hand corner, it says F3 empty, F2 empty, F1 Gebatron. F1 is the driver, F2 is the gunner, and F3 is the commander or the spotter role. Um, excuse me. All the armor so far in the game, Hell Let Loose, has these 3 seats. No piece of armor has 4 seats or anything like that. Um, you'll see a couple gauges there. The larger gauge, it says kilometers per hour. That's how fast you're going. And then the one to the left is your RPM gauge. That also has, you see a P at the bottom of that. It stands for park. There's 4 gears. Each one of these tanks has 4 gears. In the bottom center of the screen, you'll see a dial with what looks like the gun. That is like the 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. That's just um, a graphic representation of where the gun is in regards to the hull of the tank. The front of the tank is always the larger triangle towards the top of that, and then the gun will switch, will move around depending on where it is. Now you'll see 3 little circles below that. The far left one indicates the turret damage, or the turret health, I guess might be the better way to say that. The middle one is the track health, and the far right one is your hull health. As you take damage, those bars will decrease, um, and once any one of those reaches all the way to 0, your tank will be destroyed. Taking damage to the turret will mean that the turret will move slower. It will traverse slower. Taking damage to the tracks will affect how fast or how mobile the tank is. At a certain point, you will only have access to first gear, which is, you know, not a good thing. And then your hull, once your hull is, all the way down, it just destroys your tank. Let's click M to bring up the map, and let's zoom in a little bit. Now back here at your headquarters, at your home base, each one of these headquarters will have these little squares here. This one right here with a circle with a little wrench in it is a repair station. Now engineers can build repair stations out in the field, but the HQ will always have a repair station. And this little thing with the circle with the 3 bullets in it is an ammo station, because sometimes you're out there and you run out of ammo before you are destroyed. You might have to come back to the HQ to get more ammo. Currently, engineers cannot build ammo out in the field, so if you run out of ammo, you're going to have to go back to the HQ. However, you might be able to repair out in the field at a repair station. Also, the anti-tank role and engineers can currently repair tanks in the field. A tank commander and tank crew members cannot currently repair a tank. Let's open up our key while we're here. A light tank will look like this on the map, a medium tank will look like this, and a heavy tank will look like this. So here's our Tiger, here's our Panther, and here's our Lukes. So just be aware that they look different on the map and become familiar with that so you can tell the difference. Okay, let's change seats. How do you change seats? Well, you hold down the button of the seat you want to go into. We want to start from the top and work our way down. So let's hold down F3. Now we're in the commander's seat. This is the first thing you see, and this is just like the driver's, position. This is what you'll see. But if you scroll with your middle mouse button, it says in the way bottom right-hand corner, zoom in, mouse wheel up. So let's move up on our mouse wheel, and now we have access to our periscope, which can look in a 360-degree circle all the way wherever you want to go. And then if you hit up on your mouse wheel again, you'll zoom in again, and then one more time. So you can zoom in 3 times. From here, you can easily mark targets, enemy infantry over here, enemy tank over there, enemy infantry in these trees, and you can tell, your gunner or your driver where you want them to go. I want you to move down there, all that kind of stuff. Uh, if you want to learn more about marking, I will leave a link to that video in the description below, or you can check out the card in the top right-hand corner. It's always good to have your commander in the commander seat because they can leave those marks. If you have just a regular crew member up here marking targets, all they can do is ping, and pings disappear pretty quick. They don't last very long. Another little tip is if you are in here, and we do see, let's just mark this Luke's, pretend that's an enemy light vehicle. You mark it and you'd say, um, you know, enemy light tank to the northwest 300. If you look at the compass in the bottom of the screen, that will let your gunner know where that is specifically, which way he has to turn his gun, um, all that kind of stuff. Okay, let's move on to the gunner's seat. So hold down F2 to switch to that seat. Now here if you look in the right-hand part of the screen, it'll say 75 millimeter cannon empty. Then it'll have number 1, Panzer Granada 40 AP. Those are armor piercing shells, 41 of 41. If we hit the number 2, we'll move to our, I don't know what SPGR, it must be something Grenade, 42 HE. That stands for high explosive. We have 41 of 41 rounds. And then our coaxial MG34 has 250 rounds and 5 belts of that. The first thing we have to do is we have to load a round. So let's go back to 1. Let's say we're expecting, you have to load a round. The gun is empty. Once you load this round though, the only way to get rid of it, say you want to go from this AP round to HE, you'll have to fire the round. Currently there's no way to empty the gun. But don't worry, armor piercing rounds do have an area of effect. So if you fire them at infantry, they are still effective. I like to roll with an AP round loaded because if we encounter a tank, I want to be able to take the tank out before enemy infantry. Anyway, moving the gun, A will move it to the left, S will move it to the right, W will move the gun up, and excuse me, D will move it to the right, not S. S will move it down. So A will move it to the left, D will move it to the right, W will move it up, S will move it down. To fire this round, we need to click the left mouse button. Now you can see at the right it says we're empty again. Let's load an HE shell. So we click the number 2 and then we hit R to reload it. Now in order to fire your MG, you click the right mouse button. And you'll see it counts down over there. You will see at the bottom middle how the gun is moving, independent of the tank, and it'll show you its position there. Okay, now that we've done all that, let's go to the driver. Hold down F1, and now we switch to our driver's seat. Now we can't move until we start the engine. At the bottom right-hand side, you'll see E to start engine. So hold down the E key. This takes a little bit. Not too terribly long though. Okay, now in order to move this tank, we have to put it in gear. Right now we're in park. So how do you change gears? Shift, clicking the shift key will change your gears up. There's first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear. Hitting control will downshift. There's fourth, we go to third, to second, back to first, back to park. Let's say you want to back up. Hit control from park and it will take you into reverse. Note that if you want to go backwards while in reverse, you do not hit the S key. You have to hit the W key. We'll go over that later. Okay, let's open up our map. Let's put a mark down. We want to go, let's say we want to go here. Okay, so let's put this thing in gear. Let's put it in first gear and hold down W to go forward, and then we'll, hit A to move to the left. Now once we redline, we want to shift. Go a little faster. We redlined again. Let's hit T to bring up our mark. Just go through the gears like that. I don't know if any of you guys have ever driven a standard transmission vehicle, but it works the same way. Fourth gear. The reason I picked Hurtgen Forest is because you really have to stick to the roads. If you go off-road in Hurtgen Forest, you're more than likely going to get stuck among all the stumps and trees and tank traps. Okay, now we want to turn left here. Let's downshift a couple gears so we can make a nice tight turn under control. Hit shift again. If you want to come to a quick stop, if you're going in fourth gear and your commander says stop, let go of the W key and hold the S key. You can come to a pretty quick stop, but don't forget to downshift back into first gear if you want to move again. Because if you're sitting at a standstill and you're in like third gear, you won't move very quick. So you got to go through the gears. Okay, let's try to back up a little bit. Let's go into reverse, and remember you don't hit S, you hit W to go in reverse. I recommend that you guys go into an empty server, get into a tank, and drive it around because they are unique. Okay, let's say we've come to a stop here and we want to sit here for a while and no one knows we're here. You can shut the engine down so you're harder to find by holding E down. If you want to exit the tank, hold F. And there we are outside of the tank. Now there's a couple interesting things. If you exit this tank, now that once we entered the tank, we drove it around, and if you exit it and you don't enter it again in like, what is it? I timed it and it was somewhere between 10 and 11 minutes. This will self-destruct. The reason for that is so you don't have somebody that drives all of your armor out into the middle of the map. If they were never destroyed, new ones would never spawn. So they self-destruct after 10 minutes of inactivity. I don't know how long it takes for new ones to spawn. I did time the Lukes. It took 4 minutes for the Lukes from being destroyed to spawn back in. I think the larger armor takes a little longer. Yeah, we're getting towards the end of it. I will give you another quick tip. What I like to do is be aware of where the viewport on this stuff is. Like here, right there, that's the viewport on the Panther. Notice how it's on the left side of the vehicle. So as you enter it as the driver, be aware that you're farther to the left of the vehicle than to the right, so you can avoid obstacles better. Now, I will give one other tip, I guess, is normally what I like to do when I'm in a tank crew is let's just go to our commander seat. I like to have the commander looking out for targets to the left, to the right, and to the rear of the vehicle because the gunner can be scanning for targets and such to the front of the vehicle, while the driver should be looking at the road, really only focusing on where they're driving, and they should be looking for mines. Especially on Hurtgen Forest, because you have to stick to the roads, enemy engineers will put mines on the road. And So the driver should be, very aware of mines. And with all the things going on in a tank, the commander and the gunner really can't be paying attention to the road. That's really the driver's responsibility. Don't worry about friendly mines. You can drive over a friendly mine. I know some people think that you can, if you drive over a friendly mine, it will destroy you. That is not the case. All right, I think that's where we're going to stop here for the beginner's guide to armor. I will make an advanced one later and then more of a tips and tricks one at some point. Um, but I think that's where we're going to call it for now. If you have any more questions or maybe some good advice for beginners or some tips or tricks of your own, get active in the comments section. Let some people know your wisdom down there. Please subscribe to my channel, especially if you like this content and want to see more of it. And thank you everyone for watching. Like it, share it with your friends. Thanks again.